Hi everyone, Kim here at Olive City Homestead, and it is still April, and it's still the April Garden Tour. This is part 2 of the April Tour. Part 1 was filmed just before part 2, but it was such a long tour because I have such a big garden and I haven't done a tour for a few months that I decided it would be best if I divided it in half so the videos were more watchable. So I hope you enjoy this part of the tour, and go back and watch part 1 if you missed it too. So let's go see what's growing here in April in Northern California on this beautiful sunny day. Some more gazanias opening up and doing well. Gazanias are a real pollinator attractor, so the bees come to it like crazy. Yeah, I've got some echinacea there, some more gazanias. You can see a lot of spent blooms from what I was calling my wild roses, but which now I know are Dr. Huey roses, which most people think of as a kind of like a weed because they're super strong and will take over once they get going. So yeah, they are the rootstock that like 80% of California roses are grown from. And I knew they were from the rootstock because I had moved a couple of large rose bushes from my backyard to my front yard like 4 years ago. And since then, these roses keep coming up at the base from the rootstock. So I knew it was from the rootstock, but I was like calling them wild roses. I didn't know what they were, but I finally researched it, and yeah, that's what these are. Dr. Huey's, named after some dentist that he didn't invent them or breed them or anything, but he was a big proponent of them, I guess, at the turn of the century, as in like the early 1900s. And anyway, I like them. They are no care. Mine don't have any thorns, which I like a lot, and I like the color. So I'm keeping them in containers, and I have several throughout the property. Whenever time I want a new one, I just go over to the spot where I took out those big rose bushes, and yep, there's a few more coming up, and I just pull it out pretty ruthlessly, pop it in a container. I don't root it or anything. I just plop it in a container, and they take off. Over here I have a bunch of freesia I need to clean up. That's some oregano coming up that I'll probably pull out because oregano is another plant that will take over your garden. Kind of like star jasmine, which I definitely need to prune. It's taking over the steps entirely, which doesn't really matter because already my purple tree kale have completely blocked the entrance at the top of my steps. The fact is I very rarely used the steps, and so I didn't really notice this until after it had occurred. My purple tree kale overwintered well, of course. It loves cool weather. It is about 6.5, 7 feet tall. But the branches that break off as they do in the wind, if you don't regularly prune them, they still grow because they don't break off completely. And it doesn't take much to apparently keep them connected to the nutrition coming up from that massive trunk. And so I have a purple tree kale forest here on the ground because they hit the ground and then they go upright again. So this is a big job for me. I have to come in here and take probably 100 cuttings at least, because I am going to do that, and I will maybe sell them and plant a lot somewhere, because purple tree kale is beautiful. Starts off green, turns purple, and is absolutely delicious. The scabiosa, purple pincushion flower, doing awesome. Bees loving it. Another Huey rose doing well. Some more gazanias. There's some alyssum over there. And my favorite alyssum, the purple alyssum. And yeah, oregano. Everywhere the oregano. I had a beautiful coreopsis here, crimson, which I have not clearly been taking care of. Look at all that deadheading I need to do. But that's because I was a little bit discouraged with all the oregano that's like overtaking it and overwhelming it. But I just need to get in there and hack it away. Yes, and my mystery plant that I don't like at all. Anybody know what this is? It has these beautiful, I guess, purple fuzzy blooms. They look like this before they open. And there's hundreds of them on this plant. This plant is actually in a little pot, like a 6-inch pot. And when I first started growing it, I was like, oh, I don't really like this. Because what happens is underneath, the leaves yellow and die really quickly, actually. And so I kept thinking, oh, I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. But meanwhile, it took off. It didn't really care that I wanted to get rid of it and didn't like it. So, yeah, don't know. I'm going to have to do something about that. So yeah, this whole rock flower garden area is pretty overgrown. Need to prune, I need to deadhead, I need to clear away the debris, maybe add some compost. Not maybe, definitely need to add some compost. And look, I have some volunteer alyssum. That's volunteer gazania. More volunteer gazania next to my Itea Virgin Sweet Spire. More volunteer borage. And look, volunteer ruby lettuce right in the middle of my pathway. I need to harvest that because it's getting in the way. The upper part of my garden is a lot of containers as well as in ground and in raised bed. I've got crepe myrtle, which blooms. You know, these were new to me last year. This one on this end has maroon leaves. And this one on this end has green leaves with kind of a rose tinge to them. And one of them blooms purple and one of them blooms pink. But off the top of my head, I can't remember which. Oh, that's a Itea Sweet Spire that I rooted last year. I have several of those around. That is an olive seedling. I have several of those around too because I decided, you know, if I ever move, I need to take the name Olive City Homestead with me. So I need to take some olive trees with me. So now whenever I find a volunteer olive seedling, which they're around everywhere, I dig it up and put it in a pot. And some wallflower, erysimum. That plant's several years old and it just keeps getting more beautiful and stronger. Another Huey rose, another wallflower. Look at that interesting bee. Yep, some snapdragons, another olive seedling, and my pink variegated lemon tree or should it be variegated pink lemon tree? I think that's what it should be because the lemons on the inside are pink. And I can't wait to have some. And look, guys, I actually have some fruit growing and more blossoms coming. I'm really excited about this this poor tree that broke off right at the rootstock. And also, I left a growth coming from beneath the rootstock to show you. I'd break it off right now. So, you see that? That looks like a normal lemon tree, doesn't it? The deep green citrus leaves. Very different than these leaves. And that's how you know, in addition to where it was growing from way down here, that this is not the variegated tree that will produce the pink lemons. This was the rootstock. And that's what I thought was going to happen on this tree when it broke off way down here, right at the graft union. I thought it was all going to come back rootstock, but nope. Almost all of it came back with the grafted variety and just looking so well here. It did much better in the winter than my lime tree did. And I'm going to give it a little fertilizer now. I should have done that already. But I think it's going to do great this summer. Woo, it's getting hot out here, guys. I bet it's hit 80 already. So this bed here just has a variety of things in it. I'm not sure that I'm going to keep what's in it. Well, that massive spearmint plant will stay. It has started to root in the ground. I may need to take some of that out. Got a coreopsis in that pot, another olive seedling. This is a bunch of volunteer cilantro. You can see it started to bolt, go to seed. That's okay. I'll let it do that because, as you know, probably the seeds from the cilantro plant are coriander. So when you have cilantro, if you would harvest it regularly, which I failed to do this spring, it will bolt much later. And if you're like me and you have a lot of cilantro, because I do, it came up a lot of places on its own, you can definitely freeze it. You just, take off the leaves, rinse them off, and then put them in an ice cube tray with water, freeze them, break the ice cubes, put them in a bag, and then any time that you want to make a soup or a stew, you can Just throw the ice cubes in and you've got your cilantro flavor. Over here next to the fence, I have some rhubarb growing and some more coming back here. So we had a major windstorm for about a week at the end of March, beginning of April, back in there, and it broke a lot of my huge rhubarb stalks. So I harvested them all, and we had rhubarb pie and strawberry rhubarb pie. And I'm so pleased to see that after doing that, I have lots and lots of new rhubarb stalks coming up. They seem to like this area next to the fence because it does get a lot of filtered sun throughout the day and afternoon shade. I have some Chinese red noodle beans in this pot growing here. We'll see how they do. They may or may not like this lighting, but that's an experiment I'm doing right now. Have it protected from the birds. So this big empty wooden planter, you can see some space underneath it at the bottom and sunlight. That's because half the bottom rotted out. It had blueberries in it and they were not doing well because Bermuda grass had come in from underneath through that rotted bottom and was coming up and strangling the blueberry roots. So I took the blueberry plants out, dumped all the Bermuda root ridden dirt out, and I'm gonna put in a new bottom. But first I'm going to put a bunch of cardboard underneath this and some wood chips on top of that, and then the new bottom, and then I'm going to be putting in like some old collard tree cuttings and branches at the bottom for drainage purposes, and some chicken manure for nutrition, and then some soil. I have 4 huge grow bags that my dad gave me last year that I wasn't really a fan of how they did. The soil dried out so fast in my kind of hot, dry weather that I'm just going to take the soil from those grow bags and dump it in here and grow more pole beans along the fence. Although I'm also tempted to just grow sunflowers along the fence and grow something at the front like more squash. We'll see. Got a container, an old toad. It's like 10 years old, starting to fall apart at the top. But it's full of some walking onions, some purple bells, some chocolate mint in that corner, and this is stevia. I grow stevia in a few different places because I wanted to see where it does the best. And it really does prefer filtered sun. Or afternoon shade, so either one of those, it works well. It dies back in the winter completely, but in my zone 9B, which here we get down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter, several times during the winter, it does look like it's completely dead, but it always comes back in the spring, and it's a great sweetener, plant-based sweetener, and it works. It's super sweet. You don't need much of it. Works great in tea. Another rhubarb plant. I have these in different places, again, experimenting of where they'll do best. More volunteer cilantro. Well, this stuff is mostly going to flower already, see that? So we'll be having cardamom seeds pretty soon. This is a climbing cream-colored rose. It's like the roses are about 1 inch wide, and I need to look up what kind it is exactly. But I am going to do something with this. It's already got some really long branches. They're just sort of all spread out here. But you see this chair that I have a little bird bath on? I am going to do a fun little project. So I have this wire set up behind it, and I've got these bamboo sticks. So I'm going to attach these at the top and have them fan out in like a V shape at the top. So I'm going to plant the rose here behind the wire and train it up the wire and up the bamboo stakes to about 6 or 7 feet high. And it will hopefully look real pretty and give some shade to the bird bath, some protection to the birds. I have some bird seed here and this spider flower plant. And you can see how big the trunk is there. Last year, this was a huge, probably, at least 3 feet above the pot, spider flower. It was purple, it was beautiful, and I thought it was dead. I cut off the sticks and look down there. It is sending up new growth, so I'm happy about that. This is my apple mint, which, by the way, makes a wonderful addition to chamomile tea. Chamomile kind of has a little bit of a light apple flavor to it in a lot of people's opinion, and so putting the two together is a great blend. So this is a nice shady spot to sit under my umbrella when it's not windy and enjoy the bird bath and all the plants. And not many of them are flowering yet, but I have zinnias planted, and there's a pineapple sage which is just starting to bloom, and some agastache about to bloom. I got some chrysanthemums in there and some Asiatic lilies and some snapdragons. So it's a nice little area. Green onions. I told you I gotta do something about all the green onions. I really do. Got some more rhubarb, which did super well in the late winter and early spring, but it's not really liking the heavy sun we've been getting this last week. So I may move it to a shadier spot. This is one of my new additions to the garden. Last year, I bought some tropical fruit trees, and they were very small at the time, 3 to 5 inches tall. Most of them, a couple were taller, but they were very young. I kept them on my covered patio over the winter, and I hoped they would do well. As I said, we had a really chilly winter. We got actually down to about 20 a few times. They all survived, but some did better than others. This is the black sapote chocolate pudding fruit tree. And you can see that some of the leaves kind of burned in the cold earlier, but the new growth at the top looks wonderful. And I think that that tree is going to do really well. I just moved it to this location here from my back patio a few days ago. And I think it'll do well here since it gets shade from like 2:33 p.m. on. I think that's going to work really well for it. I also moved up the tropical tree that did the worst for me this winter, which was my white pear guava. It does have a few leaves on it. They don't look so hot. I am hoping that putting it in the sun, warming it up, is going to help it come back to life. We shall see. Now here I've got some honeysuckle, 2 different kinds that I got last year and never planted. One of the kinds has an orange and red bloom. Those are spent, but you can kind of get an idea. And the other kind has a white and pink bloom. So once I get these planted appropriately and out of those little tiny pots that they're in, I think they'll take off. And this next to my honeysuckle at the moment is my corkscrew willow tree, which I am really interested in seeing how it does. It does like this spot. I've had it here for about 6 weeks, and it's gotten a lot taller, a lot of new growth, and I'm even seeing some branching growth down lower, so really looking forward to that. And next to it, my brand new addition, you know what this one is? It's already about 7 feet tall, looking beautiful. It is a sweet bay tree, Laurus nobilis. These are the leaves, the bay leaves you use when you make soups and stews. And isn't it beautiful? And along my duck fence line, I've got some more rhubarb. I have some empty pots. I have some bearded iris that have already bloomed beautifully and now are cut back. And I'm going to be planting veggies in the front of each of these crates and in these empty containers. This right here, though, is my peanut butter tree. Bunchosia armeniaca, or sometimes called Bunchosia argentea, but the peanut butter tree. I am super hoping this produces fruit for me this year. It has 1 to 2 inch little fruits that are yellow and then turning red, orange and red. And the inside has a creamy, sweet fruit that tastes similar to peanut butter, so I've been told. And I can't wait to try it. I have a second one. It did not fare as well. It lost all its leaves, and so far none have grown back. So I'm hoping it makes it, but at least this one is doing well so far. And if you see my duck's pond and you're like, oh my God, it's so dirty, why doesn't she clean it? Just know that ducks get their water dirty within probably 15 minutes of you filling it with clean water. They don't seem to care. But yeah, that's what it is. That's the reality of life with ducks. Now these are walking onions that I did clean up, and I did pull babies off, and I did separate out plants and plant them in their own little containers. And I'm going to be doing that with a lot of walking onions in the evening over the next few weeks. I want to share these plants with others, and you can't grow them from seed. You can only grow them from live plants, which happen as the mature walking onions, have their little babies at the top. And we break them off and plant them, and then you have new plants. And they produce forever and are so delicious. This is a bunch of purple tree kale cuttings that I'm growing. My ducks are like, do you have something for us? Do you have a snack for us? And they are doing well. And some empty containers that I can plant with veggies that want afternoon shade. Right, ducks? You want some of this dinosaur kale, which looked like it was not doing well. It was being eaten up by something, and still has those leaves like that at the bottom. Oh, they're happy. That's their favorite food. But at the top, the new growth looks good. So next to the water feature and the plants and my ducks, I have some emerald carpet raspberries. They are sending out new growth. Not sure how they'll do here, but it's the first year with them, and we'll see. Got a fig tree cutting there that seems to be doing well. Over here, another tropical tree. This is a Suriname cherry, and it is doing really well. Sending out new growth, branching growth, pretty green leaves, beautiful texture, and I can only hope that it fruits for me this year. Some beautiful blue flowers. Some rudbeckia in there. That's one of the coreopsis I transplanted. It looks a little sad because it's a recent transplant, like yesterday, but it should bounce back. Here I have a fuzzy male kiwi. The female died, so I have to get another one or I'll never have fruit. And backing up a little bit, you can see my Nagami kumquat tree that I moved up here. It needed some more sun, and it does seem to like this spot, so I'm really happy with that. My new little planter that I adore. I transplanted one of my volunteer purple alyssums into her hair spot. And there's a German chamomile transplant behind her. Look at my new bird bath. Isn't it so pretty? I love it. It was a Christmas present from one of my daughters, and it's next to my asparagus bed. So I've had these asparagus a couple of years, hoping to harvest from them in the next year. And then here I planted this spring some purple passion asparagus. That's the Martha Washington or Mary Washington. I can never remember which Washington. And this is purple passion. And I've seen some of it coming up. There's one, and there's one there. So I know they're alive under there. And some volunteer zinnias there. And of course, more walking onions. I have pulled a bunch of walking onions over here in one spot, so I will be reminded about the fact that I need to get to work on these. You see, when you separate them, they can flourish. And in each of these cement block holes, I have one or two planted, and you can see how big they get, and then they send up their babies. The baby bursts open at the top, and you have new onions growing. But when you keep them all in a pot in huge amounts, they survive, but they don't thrive. So I need to separate them all. This bed currently only has some hyacinth that I've cut back. And my beautiful Gora bush in the middle. I'm going to take a lot of cuttings from that. I've heard it roots super easily. I definitely want to grow more of those. And then in front I have gazanias of different colors, as well as the walking onions. So yeah, this bed is empty. Gonna pull a few remaining onions out that were in there. Those aren't walking onions. I think they're Walla Walla sweet onions, and they're 1.5 years old. I harvested most of my older onions back in March, I believe. I did a video on it. But I realized, oh, I had a few more in here I need to pull out. And then I can plant this bed up with, I think, my big squashes, because I have a whole bunch of those I want to plant. And this might be a really good spot for that. Strawberry fruits growing on the strawberry tree. Lots of new tender green growth coming out at the top of this one. It's really appreciated the added sun, I believe, that it's getting since we took out the pool behind it. Now, hopefully by my May tour, this spot where the pool was will be covered in wood chips, and we'll have my new planting beds in it for all the cuttings I'm going to be doing of various plants. But right now, it looks pretty messy. But again, the irises and the strawberry trees that before were shaded by the pool are doing much better now. And so happy to say, yes, those are weeds, Bermuda grass weeds that I have to get out of here. But I'm so happy to say that my quince tree that I was doubting was going to, well, be alive. It looks so dead. And long after all my other trees had leafed out, this one continued to look dead. But now I see all over it signs of life, and that makes me super happy. This is a pineapple quince tree, and I'm really excited about growing it and harvesting the fruit from it. Now that I know it's going to grow and grow fruit. So my herb bed is next to my chicken run, and we'll start right here. I've got a bunch of lemon balm looking really great. It likes this corner spot where it gets afternoon shade. There are a few small lemon balm down there that self-seeded from the main plant that I need to dig up and transplant. Got some basil, some walking onions, and here we have some oregano, some green sorrel that the chickens absolutely adore, more walking onion, some winter savory, doing wonderful. In fact, it's really overgrowing. Got a little empty spot there with just a little pot with a walking onion. There's some lime thyme looking wonderful, and that is a great dried spice to use in your stews. More walking onion and oregano going nuts. Of course, it just loves it here. Mediterranean dry climate. Oregano will take over. Got some English thyme flowering purple right now. A bunch of green onions I need to clean up and more. And at the end, my lemon verbena, sending out lots of new growth. And boy, does this smell lovely. And it is a wonderful addition to your herb teas. Look, I've been recording for so long that the gazanias are now opening up to the noon sun. So thanks for joining me for part 2 of the April garden tour. Remember, if you didn't see part 1, you can go back and watch it now because it covers everything you didn't see in this video. You know, I always say, remember, you can create the life you want. So why not start right now? And I just want to add that when I say that, I mean that you can create that feeling that you want to have. You can work toward the goals that are in your mind for what you want your life to be like. No, it's not an immediate end goal achievement, but you can learn to enjoy the process, and you can learn to enjoy the feeling you get as you work toward those goals. I want my life to be full of nature and the peace and beauty nature brings me, and the health benefits nature can give to me. And I want to spend my days soaking in nature as I give back to it, as well as other things. But that special therapy, really, that nature gives to you like nothing else can, that can be yours today. That doesn't only come with a beautiful, perfect garden. It comes with just planting one flower or just growing one herb that can give you delicious, healthy herbal teas, or just growing one vegetable you can add to your meals that not only gives you nutrition, but the satisfaction of knowing you grew it yourself, and really the deep, intense flavor that only homegrown food has. So you can start right now to develop the garden or the homestead or the life that you want, you really can. And I wish you all the best on your journey. Join me again next time. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do so. I'd love to have you. And I look forward to seeing you for the May garden tour, but I'll be putting up several other videos before then, including how I am taking tomato suckers off of tomato plants I grew last year and how they are giving me a big head start in the veggie garden this year. Have a wonderful rest of April, everyone, and I will see you again in May.